AWS Certified Developer, Associate DVA-C02 exam dumps are the latest version in the whole market. Share some AWS Certified DVA-C01 exam dumps here. 1. A developer is deploying an AWS Lambda function. The developer wants the ability to return to older versions of the function quickly and seamlessly. How can the developer achieve this goal with the least operational overhead? A. Use AWS Ops Works to perform blue-green deployments. B. Use a function alias with different versions. C. Maintain deployment packages for older versions in Amazon S3. D. Use AWS Code Pipeline for deployments and rollbacks. 2. A developer has written an AWS Lambda function. The function is CPU-bound. The developer wants to ensure that the function returns responses quickly. How can the developer improve the function's performance? A. Increase the function's CPU core count. B. Increase the function's memory. C. Increase the function's reserved concurrency. D. Increase the function's timeout. 3. A company is offering APIs as a service over the Internet to provide unauthenticated read access to statistical information that is updated daily. The company uses Amazon API Gateway and AWS Lambda to develop the APIs. The service has become popular, and the company wants to enhance the responsiveness of the APIs. Which action can help the company achieve this goal? A. Enable API caching in API Gateway. B. Configure API Gateway to use an interface VPC endpoint. C. Enable cross-origin resource sharing (CORS) for the APIs. D. Configure usage plans and API keys in API Gateway. 4. A developer maintains an Amazon API Gateway REST API. Customers use the API through a front-end UI and Amazon Cognito authentication. The developer has a new version of the API that contains new endpoints and backward-incompatible interface changes. The developer needs to provide beta access to other developers on the team without affecting customers. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? A. Define a development stage on the API Gateway API. Instruct the other developers to point the endpoints to the development stage. B. Define a new API Gateway API that points to the new API application code. Instruct the other developers to point the endpoints to the new API. C. Implement a query parameter in the API application code that determines which code version to call. D. Specify new API Gateway endpoints for the API endpoints that the developer wants to add. 5. A developer has an application that stores data in an Amazon S3 bucket. The application uses an HTTP API to store and retrieve objects. When the PutObject API operation adds objects to the S3 bucket, the developer must encrypt these objects at rest by using server-side encryption with Amazon S3 Managed Keys, SSES3. Which solution will meet this requirement? A. Create an AWS Key Management Service, AWS KMS key. Assign the KMS key to the S3 bucket. B. Set the XAMZ server-side encryption header when invoking the PutObject API operation. C. Provide the encryption key in the HTTP header of every request. D. Apply TLS to encrypt the traffic to the S3 bucket. 6. A developer needs to perform geographic load testing of an API. The developer must deploy resources to multiple AWS regions to support the load testing of the API. How can the developer meet these requirements without additional application code? A. Create and deploy an AWS Lambda function in each desired region. Configure the Lambda function to create a stack from an AWS CloudFormation template in that region when the function is invoked. B. Create an AWS CloudFormation template that defines the load test resources. Use the AWS CLI create stack set command to create a stack set in the desired regions. C. Create an AWS Systems Manager document that defines the resources. Use the document to create the resources in the desired regions. D. Create an AWS CloudFormation template that defines the load test resources. Use the AWS CLI deploy command to create a stack from the template in each region. 7. A developer is creating an application that includes an Amazon API Gateway REST API in the East2 region. The developer wants to use Amazon CloudFront and a custom domain name for the API. The developer has acquired an SSL/TLS certificate for the domain from a third-party provider. How should the developer configure the custom domain for the application? A. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager (ACM) in the same region as the API. Create a DNSA record for the custom domain. B. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into CloudFront. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. C. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager (ACM) in the same region as the API. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. D. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager (ACM) in the East1 region. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. 8. A developer is creating a template that uses AWS CloudFormation to deploy an application. The application is serverless and uses Amazon API Gateway, Amazon DynamoDB, and AWS Lambda. Which AWS service or tool should the developer use to define serverless resources in YAML? A. CloudFormation Serverless Intrinsic Functions. B. Oz Elastic Beanstalk. C. Oz Serverless Application Model, Oz SAM. D. Oz Cloud Development Kit, Oz CDK. 9. A developer wants to insert a record into an Amazon DynamoDB table as soon as a new file is added to an Amazon S3 bucket. Which set of steps would be necessary to achieve this? A. Create an event with Amazon Event Bridge that will monitor the S3 bucket and then insert the records into DynamoDB. B. Configure an S3 event to invoke an AWS Lambda function that inserts records into DynamoDB. C. Create an AWS Lambda function that will poll the S3 bucket and then insert the records into DynamoDB. D. Create a cron job that will run at a scheduled time and insert the records into DynamoDB. 10. A company is planning to securely manage one-time fixed license keys in AWS. The company's development team needs to access the license keys in automaton scripts that run in Amazon EC2 instances and in AWS CloudFormation stacks. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost-effectively? A. Amazon S3 with encrypted files prefixed with config. B. Oz Secrets Manager secrets with a tag that is named secret string. C. Oz Systems Manager Parameter Store secure string parameters. D. CloudFormation no echo parameters.